that a man can have up to 4 wives. It tells the man that one is better for him if he but knew. The Quran also says, do justice by your wives. But you cannot. But do the best you can, because when you have more than one wife, one is going to be favored over another. It always happens that way. Well, why did God allow what is called polygamy? Is God a disrespecter of women? Does God think so little of women and their pain and suffering that he would give his prophet a right to women to hurt them, to abuse them? No! Look at you, sister. You're like women whose men are at war, and the ranks of the black male is decimated. Either we're in jail, listen good, we're on drugs, we've turned into homosexuals, and the woman is sitting here without a decent man, without a real man to look to comfort her, to guide her, to be a real husband for her. She's a suffering black woman, outnumbering men 3, 4, 5, 6 to 1. So you're all fighting over the few little men that's left. And the one that you got, you wish you had left him alone to get somebody else. Women are so valuable in the sight of God. He will allow something that is not the best to keep the precious woman from falling into that which is worse. Prostitution is a hell of a thing. Lesbianism is a hell of a thing. Fornication and adultery is a hell of a thing. Since God hates fornication and adultery because it robs family. It breaks up family. And if you look in the Bible and Quran, God's laws are very harsh when it comes to anything that interferes with family. Because family is the basis of a nation, and anything that interferes with marriage ruptures family, and anything that ruptures family ruptures nation. And that's why adultery in the Old Testament is punished by death. Fornication is punished by death. Homosexuality is punished by death. In the Old Testament, Moses would not even allow a man to wear woman's clothes. He'd be killed. And women couldn't come out in no man's clothes. You'd be killed. You can't play no man. You may want to be one, but you can never be a man. I don't care how hard you try to toughen up your face. And I don't care how hard you try to be a woman, brother. You ain't got it. You never will have it. Any man that wants a real woman is a damn fool to lay up with a man. But no man can give you what God put in a woman for you. No man. No man. We're messed up. We're off course. We've been bamboozled. We've been hoodwinked. We've been took. We've been had. Isn't that what Malcolm said? We almost finished. the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, knowing that if the believers knew that he had taken wives, what would they want to do? Come on. Every old brother dissatisfied with his wife would be looking among the sisters. There's my number 2. There's my number 3. And before you know it, ego jive time brother with no job, he'd be over here talking to you and all the 3 women would be on welfare and he's sitting up at home waiting for the check. That ain't being no man. You all right? If you don't know how to handle that knowledge, it's best that you don't know. So those sisters suffered to protect, number 1, the messenger, and to protect us from a knowledge that we might not have been able to handle if we had that knowledge, and 3rd, to protect their children, which is the bloodline of the most hated man of all. Now, if they don't like Elijah, do they like his children? They're afraid that his children will be like him. And if he's given the white world hell, what will his children do? This was no plaything. A man of Elijah Muhammad's means could pay for abortions. If it was just a sexual thing, a man don't have to have babies. Hey, girl, get rid of it, you know what I mean? But Elijah Muhammad did not want sex. He wanted children. I'm not going to say he didn't want sex. Pardon me. I said he wanted children. I got to be real about everything. As you sure can't have children without sex. That's for sure. But I'm saying that's not the motive. The motive is that the seed of a man chosen by God must not be wasted. You don't think God understands the suffering of women and wives in situations like that? Sister Clara Muhammad was devastated when she heard it. That's a faithful woman who worked hard in all her knowing life. She told me that she don't know nothing she has done in 40 years that she couldn't stand before Allah feeling absolutely ashamed. She didn't know anything she had done to be ashamed of. That's what she told me. It's a good woman, a righteous woman, but like any good woman, hurt. She wasn't going to permit it if he went to her and said, now, it's time for me to take wives. What? There ain't no black woman got sent, you know what I mean, except you've been trained that way. And in the Islamic culture and in the culture of the Hebrews, it grew up that way. It's easy. We grew up in the Christian West, where everybody talks monogamy and lives polygamy. Can we get a witness? So when Malcolm found out through the Imam that Evelyn had gotten pregnant from the messenger, he was hurting. And with all the envy and jealousy of the ministers, he began to think that his teacher was jealous of him too. So when he made that statement on the death of Kennedy, that it was a case of the chickens coming home to roost, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad silenced him, Malcolm was hurt. I want you to hear me well, ministers, because there are times in your life with me as mine with the messenger that you think when a man is doing something for you that he's doing something to you. And your own perception, based on whatever's in your brain, may not allow you to see your leader's actions in the proper way. When Malcolm began to doubt Elijah Muhammad, and doubt is the mother of hypocrisy. When Malcolm made the statement about the assassination of Kennedy as the chickens coming home to roost, and the messenger said, in the public, Malcolm was not speaking for me. He was speaking for himself. And I have silenced Malcolm for 90 days. Two things were accomplished. Three things were accomplished. He showed the public that he was not with any statement of mockery of the death of the president. When our brother got killed in Los Angeles by the police, a plane full of Georgia citizens went down. All of them were killed. Malcolm got on television and said, God answered. Killed that whole plane load of crackers for our brother. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he didn't use the word crackers, devils. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad called him in and said, no, brother, you don't make mockery of death. Even though what you're saying is true, you don't look like a civilized man if you would stand up in the face of death and mock people who are grieved over the dying and their relatives. Even the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when a Jew's bier or casket was walking by, Prophet Muhammad stood and he asked his companions to stand. And when the bier went by, they wanted to know, why would you stand for the coffin of a Jew? He stood, he said, in respect for the angel of death that must touch all of us. Elijah Muhammad was trying to make Malcolm a statesman. And so Malcolm, in mocking Kennedy's assassination, Elijah Muhammad took him out of the public to keep Malcolm from being assassinated. But Malcolm misperceived because he already had the seed in his mind. My teacher's jealous. The ministers are against me. So he wanted to fight back. And how did Malcolm choose to fight back? That Sunday, the first Sunday that Malcolm was sat down, I was the minister that was asked by Elijah Muhammad to speak in Malcolm's place. And I spoke in New York, and Malcolm came. Malcolm could come to the mosque, he could run the mosque, but he couldn't speak. He was still in control. Malcolm picked me up in that same blue Oldsmobile that's over there in Malcolm X College. And we drove across the Tri-Borough Bridge to his home in East Elmhurst, which later became the home where my wife and my family stayed. And Malcolm and I sat down to dinner, and Betty was in the kitchen. She had made the food, and she came in and served it. And Malcolm told me that Elijah Muhammad had fathered children from two of the secretaries from Boston who had become his wives. And as Allah is my witness, I will never lie by the grace of God. Malcolm said, I'll get Evelyn and Lucille on the phone and trick them and make them say that Elijah Muhammad is the father of their children. I said, you don't have to do that for me. Your word is sufficient. He said, well, what do you think about it? I said, I think that there's no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger. And as Malcolm was taking me back to the airport, he said, brother, I don't want you to tell anybody what I've told you. I said, no, sir, I'm not going to tell anybody but the messenger. See, one of the things about the nation, in the dead world, you call that snitching. You don't believe in that crap here. You start speaking against the leader, it is my duty to report my mother. Because it's bigger than mama, it's bigger than dad, it's bigger than this little jive friendship you got. When you're dealing with the messenger of God, anything against the messenger is against the life of the nation. I had to report to the messenger what Malcolm had said. That's the way I was trained, and it was Malcolm who trained me. When I said I would tell the messenger, he jumped. I got on the plane and went back to Boston. My wife was asleep in the bed. I couldn't sleep all night long. I'm turning, tossing, mind all messed up. 5 a.m. the next morning, Malcolm called. Brother Lewis, I want you to delay writing the messenger so I can get my letter off to him explaining what I said. I said, well, brother, it's going to take me some time to get my head together to write the letter. And if you can get your letter off to him in that time frame, please do so. I said, I don't want to be caught in no struggle between two powerful men. He said, there ain't but one powerful man. I said, well, you got that right. That morning, since I couldn't sleep, I went in my little office and I opened my Quran. And as God would direct my hand, I opened to the 33rd chapter of the Quran, which deals with the domestic life of Prophet Muhammad. And when I started reading about the wives of the Prophet and what the Christian missionaries said about him and the slander on the Prophet, I said, this is it. We can defend him. I called Malcolm back. I said, Malcolm, I found something in the Holy Quran. I'd like to come over and talk to you about it. He said, come on. I had $28 to my name. It took $28 to get from Boston to New York and New York back. At that time, it was $14 on the shuttle. That was a long time ago. I got on that shuttle and Malcolm picked me up at the airport. And we drove around. And I want you to listen to me carefully. I told Malcolm what I had found in the Quran that would allow us to defend the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And as God is my witness, Malcolm said these words to me. He said, I already know it. He said, but you can't handle it, Brother Lewis. I'll handle it. You leave it alone. I said, yes, sir. So I went back to Boston.